Hi there, my name is Rick Hounjet. I'm with the Hub City Turners in Saskatoon, and I'm going to try to show you how to dye wood. I'm going to show you the way I do it. It's not necessarily the right way to do it, but it's the way I do it, and I'm having some nice success with it. This is a piece of box elder that I've dyed with 11 coats and pyrography trees on it after that. The way that I do my dyeing is in this piece here, which is another piece of box elder burl. It took me about 3 to 4 days of putting the dye on, sanding it, putting more dye on, sanding it back again with different colors, different hues, and I let it dry between each one. Today I'm going to be speeding it up with a heat gun to make things quicker, but you're not going to get the same effect as this. It'll be somewhat like it, but you're not going to get this depth the way that I'm going to do it today to show you. The Reader's Digest condensed version is what I'm doing today. Today I'm going to try to attempt to make this roughly the same color as the Blue Mountain pottery, using blues, greens, reds, and yellows in various layers. So to start with this piece, this is box elder burl. It has some bark, has little inclusions. I start with water, just straight water. And for me, it helps open up the wood, the pores in the wood. It just helps the dye go in. I use water-based dye. Some people use alcohol. I use water. It's cheaper, and for me it works. I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone, but for me it works. So I put the water on. I'm going to dry with a hairdryer, heat gun. Normally I would just let it air dry. So once it's dry, this isn't 100% dry, sand the fuzzies off, any of the raised grain. Some of it's going to probably raise again, because when I do it, sometimes I put 15 layers of dye on. Sometimes 4, sometimes 15, sometimes 9, whatever I need, whatever I like when it comes up. And we're going to mount it on the lathe here. I find it easier to do on the lathe. This is my dye bottle. I've never dropped one of these yet. Easy to hold, easy to pour. This is a very important piece of equipment. I'm not going to tell you where I get these from. The proctologist. Alrighty. This dye is a dye from Catadye that I've mixed. It's a combination of blue and yellow to make a green. And you'll find sometimes when you do that, when you throw it on the wood, the blue and the green will separate. But hopefully this won't. So this is my first coat. I probably could have done a bit more sanding on this. Now the cool thing with dye is, see what I was talking about, the yellow leaching out? You got to be very careful of that with green. The cool thing with dye is if you have a spot that's double dark like this here, you just add more dye and blend it in, and it'll all work out. Like if some parts are a little light, that's the grain. You can darken it up by mixing up darker dye and rubbing it in real good. to do these little recesses and indents. Sometimes you use a paintbrush or an airbrush, toothbrush, Q-tips, anything. Today I'm just going to use a rag. And you get that pooling in there. You kind of got to sop that up, or you're going to have dark lines in there. This rag is being used for a while. That's what started out like was this one. Okay, now we're going to dry it up a little bit. Normally, I would leave this dry for at least 3 or 4 hours because this is just going to dry off the surface. The water that made it into the wood isn't going to be dry. It's going to stay in there, and if you keep doing it, the water is going to be pushed right into the wood. I've had dye come right through the other side. So I recommend letting it dry a lot longer than what we're doing. Sometimes it'll take me a week or two to do one piece, just to make sure that it's dry, because if you put your oil on it and it's wet, it's not going to turn out very good. So anyway, I'll keep you doing this. Okay, now we're going to try a little bit of blue. That's how we're going to get a nice deep color. I like using the small containers for my dye. This way, if I get some colors mixed, my whole quart's not ruined or changed color. If this gets damaged, it's not a big deal. Okay, now we should have that nice, almost Blue Mountain pottery look coming up here. Maybe a little darker. Let's see what happens. This is blue on top of green with no sanding back between the layers. This is straight dye, no sanding. Sometimes you use an airbrush, you can get a lot lighter touch. When you do it on the lathe, you got to be very careful. If you put too much like this, like I'm going to do this on purpose here. If you put too much on and you're wiping away and everything's going great and you turn it around, you're going to have this big pool on the bottom. And sometimes you can get rid of it and sometimes you can't. Now because I did that, I washed a lot of the green. It's still there, but now you can see the big, it's not completely blue. It's a nice blue-green color. Sometimes I'll do these little ones in a different color, these little holes. I'll add a little red to it or something just to give it a little contrast, just to make it pop a little bit. So now it's looking pretty blue. We're going to add more green again. But first, we got to dry it. This would be another 6 to 8 hours or whatever, but I'm just going to use this. Okay, let's say another day went by and everything's nice and dry. So you're going to lightly sand it again, like this. Now you can sand as hard as you want, as light as you want. These should not be there. These sanding marks. This is called knocking back, from what the pros on YouTube say. And when you sand this dye off, you're going to get a lot of powder on your sandpaper, because that's what the dye actually grinds up to, is powder. Okay, so there it is, lightly sanded. I would have spent a lot more time at that normally. There's some sanding marks here I don't like, but we'll see if we can hide those. So we put the green on, we put the blue on. Now we're going to put more green on. Let's see what happens now. Oh, looks like Blue Mountain pottery kind of. Has that same kind of color. That's looking really nice. Some of my pieces I've done up to 20 layers like this, just to get the different hues that I like. And if I don't like it, I put it on the lathe and peel it all off. Or there's always black dye, but I like to use every piece of wood I have if I can. Now we got a real nice dark blue-green, and it's going to look something like that if I was to oil it right now along that color. Now we got to let it dry again. Let's try red. It's not Kool-Aid. Okay, we did 2 greens and 1 blue. We did a green, covered it with blue, and then we covered that with green, and we got this color. So now, just for the sake of this video on dyeing, just for fun, without sanding, I'm going to throw some red in there. And let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. It went brown. Almost black. Are you surprised? I'm not, because I've done this many times. So this almost gives you a silver, I don't know why, a silver black kind of color. And I love it. I use this color a lot. While it's still wet, you put another layer of green. And this will bring it back to life a little bit. I don't know why when you add the red it turns so dark, but it does. And I love that color. I call it mysterious black because I don't know why it happens. On paper, it comes out like a dark purple. Okay, more drying time. There's 4 layers of color now. So now I'm gonna knock it back again. If I was to have left this overnight, it would be a different colors. It seems like the colors seem to mix together more or mellow out or whatever you want to call it overnight. So I'm gonna put 2 more layers on after this sanding. Introducing a brand new color. This is how you get the depth that I get. The people at the dye companies might say I'm doing it all wrong, but I'm happy with what I'm getting out of this here. Okay, this is just real quick. Okay. We're going to mix a little yellow in here now. I've done this with straight black, sand it back in yellow, and you get this kind of tiger effect. Now you can start to see the layers of color building up on themselves. Especially in here. It looks a lot more deeper than just 2 colors or 3 colors. The more layers you put on, the deeper the look you're going to get. Plain and simple. It's just time and effort, and mainly time. There's not much effort into it, you just put it on. I find it kind of fun. But every time you put it on, I like to leave it dry naturally, because the water is still, right the way I'm doing it right now is wrong, because the water's still locked inside the wood. I'm only drying the outside surface. All that moisture that's getting sucked into the wood is still there at the end of this demonstration. So do it the way you do it, and don't do it the way I'm doing it. I'm just showing you for a quick example. So we said that we were going to go green-blue on this one. So we're going to put more green on. Followed some more blue. And we're going to see how that looks. It's amazing that the red made it so dark. That's what happens for some reason. I don't know why. There's the green. Now we're going to add more blue. Sometimes you can get kind of cool effects on certain parts of the wood or your bowl or... Now here we go. Now we're getting it. There's the magical colors I'm looking for. Now there's that depth. It looks almost 3D-ish because there's so many layers of color in there. There's a lot of people, they say, Rick, how do you get that color like that? Well, this is how. I'm giving you my secrets. Divulging my secrets on all it is layers. There's no big secret to it. Now, if you have this, I'll show you something for a nice effect. If you have this, and you want to take it to the next level, you're going to hit this up here with green. Don't put it on too thick. You're going to hit this with green. It's not a strict line or anything. And you're going to hit this with blue. Green and blue. Okay, we can just do where the colors are touching here. We're good. Push the blue one way. Flip your rag. Push the green the other. Now you get that nice green to blue. And now we dry again. Whenever I do darker colors, if I want to, I'll leave it dark. If I want this color to pop a bit more, 90% of the times I finish with yellow. So let's see what happens when I put yellow on. We got this gorgeous color here right now. If I put yellow on it, it's not going to lighten it up that much, but it'll make it pop. And then after a day or two, your colors are going to mix together more so. Once everything's dry, the colors do change. I don't know why. It does. For me anyway, I find that the colors change if you leave it for a day. And if I mix my last coat with yellow, especially on the greens and blues, I get a nicer color when I hit it with oil. It kind of just balances everything out. So let's try putting some yellow on here and see what this looks like. No, everything is just popping. All that color is just coming to life. And that's roughly the color it's going to be when it's oiled. And this is the color, for me, that sells. This is the color that the people are drawn to. This and the oranges. That's basically what it's going to look like when it's oiled, is this color here. Now if you want to, you can take a paintbrush and you can run a paintbrush along something like this, these lines here, let the dye spill out a little bit, and you can add some different colors to that. Rub that in once it's in, and you can get some really cool stripes. You know, I can show you. I'll just show you. I'm going to put some blue on here, just as an example. I won't get too carried away. Sometimes I do this for effect. Let that sit and soak for a bit. Now you got a little bit of blue going in with the green. And you can do blacks or whatever, and it'll make your piece pop a bit more if you do that. These little tracings here. You can add dots, you know, whatever you like. You can make something like this. You could go all black to give it more depth, or you can hit it with more yellow, make it pop, or don't do anything at all. We'll just have to wait and see once this dries what I'm going to end up doing with it. And that's how I dye. Alright, this is a piece of box elder burl. You saw how I did the other piece. This is done yellow to orange to red to purple to black. There's about 15 layers of color on this piece. The main thing that you got to remember to do when you're dyeing is don't hold back. So like, just be creative. Don't be scared to mix colors. You can always take it off. You can always mix more color until you find something that you like. Like the piece that I just did, I could probably add another 5-6 layers of yellow and make it really bright again and make it pop. I was happy with this. I'm happy with the pieces that I do, obviously. Here's a piece that you can add to again. This has stenciling on it. This is where you dye the wood. You cut out with painter's tape your stencil, and then you hit it with black. Just like doing a car or whatever. Only I use dye. Only thing is when you stencil with dye, you got to use very, very, very light coats. Otherwise, in something like these antlers, the color will bleed into the grains of the wood, and you're just going to have, instead of an elk, you'll have a rabbit or something. It's just not going to turn out. It's just everything will just be fuzz. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I don't know if it's the right way to do it. I don't know if the dye companies would say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but this is the way I do it, and I'm getting lots of compliments. So if you want to try it, try to dye, go right ahead, have fun, wear your gloves, wear old clothes, have fun, and make some beautiful pieces for you and your loved ones. Have a great day.
Of a future that